there's only one thing that matters when it comes to actually nurturing leads. Because there's a bajillion different ways to do the thing. And this one thing is the only thing that actually matters. But you turn a corner, you can create the different ways to text. You can create the different ways to email. You can create the different ways to send different content. You can create the different ways to message them in DMs. You can create the different ways to do whatever it is that you want to do. And all of those things are a different like tactic to go out and execute. But where most people get messed up is trying to tie where somebody currently is in their journey to what information and thing you need to be doing with them. Somebody mentioned in the school community a couple days ago around periodization, right? I went in and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to answer this question about structured periodization on nutrition and fitness and all of these things. And I let it off with, I'm not the expert, so don't listen to what I have to say, but here's 5 paragraphs of my thought process through self-experimentation. But I look at it this way, what I know today and what I do today, I never could have done 3-4 years ago when you started coaching me, because I didn't know, and probably even more than I didn't know, I wasn't ready to like understand it and own it. Like the thought process of, hey, I got to gain more weight and get fat 4 years ago, so to speak, was never going to fly. Just wasn't going to fly. So it was a generalized, all right, Steve's here. I got to meet him where he's at. And here's what we're going to learn. And we're going to reverse diet, Steve, so we can increase your metabolism. And we didn't talk about the fact that I might gain weight through that process. Now, 3-4 years later, I'm like, man, I just spent like 10 weeks gaining weight and I gained 17 pounds and man, I'm awesome. And like, that's like a badge of honor now that I was able to do that. And I did that, by the way, that entire period of time. So 17 pounds. I gained 0.9 pounds of fat, as InBody says. So I did that really well. If you remember my first bulk, it was like cookies to hit my calorie goals and shit like that. And I definitely gained more like 30 to 40% of my weight that I gained was through fat. You met me where I was at that period of time, what I was willing to listen to, what I was willing to do. And it's what was able to get me to move along my journey to get me to where I needed to go. We know so much about our craft. And you've mentioned that story about Bobbert. He has the $40,000 packages at the gym or whatever it is. And when somebody comes to you brand new, no relationship, no context, they don't even know how to articulate their goals to you. And you just lay out, here's the 48 things you need to do to be successful, and I'm going to bill you 10 grand for that. That's a really bad spot to start in. But after 3 years of a journey, and it's like, all right, well, hey, what do you got going on this year? How's your budget looking? How much time did you truly learn to manage your food? Like when you understand the entire picture, you can have an honest conversation like, hey, Andrew, here's the 5 things that matter. You tell me the inputs and I'll tell you the output. And like, we're going to be here. We're going to be honest, but we have that relationship. Lead nurture is very similar to that, where where's this person at? And this is the cold and warm and hot lead. And, you know, the informed, uninformed, and all the tools that people are going to tell you. But what are they currently thinking in their mind? And scratch that itch. What do they know about you? And scratch that itch. Like, don't sit here and tell them shit that doesn't matter to them yet. So the actual game is guessing and building the bridge between where they're at, give them information, where they're at, give them information, where they're at, give them information, and get them to make those little moves and those little steps. That's what's actually going to make something matter for that person.
Well, you mentioned a couple different things in there, and I'd like to expand on those for a second because the audience might not have any idea what that is. And pulling back the expert curtain here, what are some of to define some of the current existing marketing models that are intended to serve the lead nurture purpose? I believe you use informed, uninformed consumer, stuff like that.
You have the problem awareness continuum, which is a big thing. You have your funnel call outs of cold to hot leads. Those tend to be the biggest two that people are going to talk about. We've talked about it before, and those are important things to understand. But moving away from the shiny object of what it is, what's on that person's mind, feed them the thing to solve that problem for them. If they're wondering what problem they have, solve that problem. If they're wondering how you can solve that problem, solve that problem. If they're wondering, how do I start with you? Solve that problem. Like, those are the things that we need to be thinking about. What is that person thinking? Let me answer their question. And if you're the person that continually answers their question for them when they have the question, you become the person of choice that they want to talk to.
So when it comes down to, and again, just to kind of cap this, hot versus cold leads, I'm sure a majority of people that are in sales or have some sales component to their role, I've probably heard this term. And when people Google sales training, they're probably going to see something along those lines. When we talk about lead nurture and the general idea of getting someone to build more of an understanding around what you do and how you can potentially help them, how does that fit into the traditional thing that someone might Google when it comes to, bridging marketing and sales?
When we think the beginning of their journey, they tend to have spots where they don't even know what they need, so they don't know what questions to ask. That would be that cold or unaware person, so to speak. They don't know who or what types of programs can solve the problem if they're aware of their problem, or they don't know that what you do to potentially solve the problems that they have. So think of that person early in the journey, that unaware side of things, that cold funnel spot lead, cold lead, top of funnel, so to speak. That person usually has a what question, a who question top of mind, where when you move through the funnel, you go to warm to hot, or you go to like solution aware or whatever thing that we're talking about in a continuum. Those people tend to have a little bit more of the how questions on mind. How does the program work, or how much is it going to cost me? So it's kind of, all right, if they have a what question, let me serve up things, emails, texts, content, conversations, whatever it is, that answers those questions in that bucket. Are you going to get absolute and perfection all the time? No, of course not. And that's where marketing is the game that it is, because you don't know. But we want to answer those questions. And as they move through there, you want to then serve up the how stuff, right? So the way I would think about it is, so I have a longtime colleague I've gotten to work with in a couple of capacities. I met him in 2009. His name is Kevin, and he was the COO of the first franchise that I had opened. And we actually had a really bad relationship when we started our relationship, because one of us is aggressive and the other one's not. I'll let you guys figure out who that is. But now he builds the curriculum at a college out west. And one of the students that he met with was like, hey, I need help with this thing. I have this business idea. I'm working on it. Like, they did a Shark Tank thing. So he's like, hey, Steve, you mind talking to this guy, Sean? He's got this cool idea. He needs some help with funnels. Yeah, sure. Totally down. Him and I get on a call on Tuesday. We spend about 45 minutes. He's like, yeah, the idea is great. I just don't have traffic and I need help. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, makes sense. Explain it to me. Let me understand it. So we talk through it a little bit. And today, social media is it's so easy to capture attention from a free perspective, but it requires time, effort, and energy, which is on one hand maybe not free. And we talked through that. Understanding his business, I was like, hey, you should go look at these two people on TikTok, look at what they do with their content, and start replicating that. Then go out, and he's building a platform for students to be able to ask other students at universities about their experience around the school. And you have to pay in order to ask the questions. The students who answer the questions get paid to answer the questions. And it's this whole kind of marketplace per se, where you go down this road of, I just want to learn what it's like, but not from the school itself.
So Reddit, paid Reddit.
Paid Reddit.
Got it.
So I told him to go do this thing, and he's like, all right, cool. Well, what do I make the content about? Well, we need to solve, like, what are the questions that people might even have when they start out? Like, that's the content we want to make on TikTok or Instagram or Snapchat or wherever. But once you get them into your platform, you now need to solve the who questions. And it talks about like where they're at in their journey with you. If you capture them on TikTok, well, what captures their attention? Not who, not how, like what am I thinking? I got to capture them here. And again, I'm meeting them where they're at, like what's the question in the platform that they're in. And then as they get closer to me and I maybe get them on my email list or something like that, I now answer different questions for them to help them continue to move through the journey. So same token here, depending upon the structure of your business, what's the question they have top of mind in the place that they're at? If they're texting you, they're probably not trying to figure out what their problem is. they're probably trying to understand more how you help them and how much it's going to cost: time, effort, energy, money, all the things. So knowing that journey as well is also important when it comes down to designing this, so to speak, moving people through the funnel. You need to solve the problem they have in the place that they have it. And the likelihood of them having different problems in different places in their journey, i.e., on your social media versus in your CRM versus in your DMs versus in your text messages versus on a sales call, is all very different things, right? If you've already taught them about your secret super process that you have, spending 30 minutes on a 60-minute sales call around that is probably not the best use of time. Correlating how your specific process that they should already know, oh, I'm sure you saw this content around my 48 steps to whatever. The way we do that is actually blah, 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 blah. Ask them a couple of questions and then give them more of a specific solution to their problem so you can customize their plan. That's
Mhm.
where you should start to think information delivery at current steps in that journey.
To your point, there's so much information that exists today that most of it really turns into noise. And I think that a lot of new coaches are really struggling to build an audience, especially if they're a second career transitional type of individual, where we see a lot of folks that are, I don't know, early 40s, mid 50s, somewhere around there, that are looking to make a change. They've come to either come close to retirement, or they frankly just hate their job and they want to do something more meaningful or impactful for them. And they're on social media and they're competing with, teenagers and 20 somethings for attention. And they're trying to do it using the same methods and strategies, which frankly, it's just not their wheelhouse. You're not going to compare yourself with a 20-year-old that, wears lingerie, that's talking about why her gut bloat detox plan is the thing that causes her to have abs. Like, it's just not the thing. And so I think one of the big value propositions when it comes to lead nurture and segmenting people where they are in that lead nurture journey is really a function of, for the people that are transitioning later in their careers, is identifying what the point of interest is that would have someone ask a question, because you have to be interesting in order for someone to generate a question. Otherwise, in the world of, again, 20 somethings and skin tight whatever and deep cleavage and whatever else that they're doing for attention, that just those advantages are disappearing as we age. Those are the things you have to compete with. So you either have to be more interesting, you have to pay more to get more penetration across more audience. um yeah, you like that? Pay to penetrate, pay to play, some people say. We'll put this in the 2026 bloopers. I'm running off like 4 hours of sleep, guys, so you can suck it. But yeah, again, when you consider the nature of what we're doing to compete for attention, and we talked about lead gen last time, I think that that's really an important thing for people to continue to keep in mind, that in order to build that relationship from a psychological perspective, you have to maintain and, if anything, build interest. And how do you do that? What do you talk about? How do you frame the things that you talk about? If we think about this from a media perspective, how do you become a person of interest, which means you either have a very different substance, you either have a very different perspective, and how that's making a increased prevalence, because it's something that's just, it's a pattern interrupt. It's something that people are using. And we know negativity, and this is where we do have an ethical, and I think all this houses kind of the media strategy, so to speak, of lead generation, lead nurture. When we think about ethically managing that attention, like, there are ways that you can hack that by being excessively negative, by being a fear monger, which is why we see that becoming increasingly prevalent in social media. And, I would implore our listeners to maybe not stoop to that all the time. Certainly, it might be something that could be helpful, but what you're doing is you're creating interest by creating negative deficits of, if you do this, there's something potentially catastrophic or consequential that's going to ruin and change your life. And that's not really going to put people in the most creative mindset whenever they're looking to craft a meaningful path, or when they're looking for solutions. You're going to prime them to look for something that ease their pain instead of create something that might be a little more uplifting and aspirational. So depends on what kind of brand you want to have, but frankly, like, I think that, again, around the lead nurture side, the thing that we strive to do is help people build a positive impact in their local communities and their online communities. So I would just, again, invite you to entertain that perspective.
And the other thing I'll throw out there too, the people who are using their given body to capture attention, not something that they've worked for, are attracting a very specific type of attention, right? So if that's your business and your brand, then like, hey, go figure that out. And there's a lot of 40 and 50 and 60-year-old people online who are also flaunting their bodies and get a lot of attention. So
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. But if you sit there and say, I don't want to do that, but that's the reason I can't grow my business,
Mm-hmm.
well, the thing is you're just not showing up as you where you need to be. The other side of this, like let's just be brutally honest for a minute. To make $100,000 a year, you need to generate around $8,300 a month. To generate $8,300 a month, depending upon how much you're charging, we're talking, I'll call it on the very low end. If you have a really good skill set and things like that, you need 8, 9 clients. On the very high end, you need 15 to 20 clients. I would be willing to bet that in your phone book, in your email addresses, and the people you're already connected to on social media, you could find 10 people that could use your services. They're friends, family, acquaintances, whatever the case may be, because chances are you've already hung around the people that are more willing to know, like, and trust you than anything else. You just have a mental block of going out there and going, oh, I don't want to reach out to Andrew to see if he needs some help with his fitness this year, blah, blah, blah. Like, get over that and you can start making 100 grand in 3 to 6 months without having to crack the social media conundrum. I'm not saying don't do social media. I think you should, but you don't need social media to go and grow,
Mm-hmm.
to do something entry level. And I'm saying 100 grand. Like, a lot of people would be, oh, my first year I can make 60 to 80,000 dollars. Like, that's not an impossibility if you have a true skill set and you're willing to just go out to all the people that you already know and have those conversations.
Yeah. When I think you highlight something that's really important for people to also consider is that you have now problems, you have later problems. And when we talk about the nature of nurture, just too many vowels in there, is effectively that lead generation is the thing that most people will associate with having positive. Was it ELS, entrepreneurial lead syndrome, where you
Yep.
find that there's a lot of businesses that have had some modicum of success and they're, generating hundreds, if not maybe like a couple $1 million a year, and they think that they just need more leads. And I'm thinking about specifically one company that I believe they had 46,000 people that they hadn't touched that they had paid for to build their audience, Steve. And they were like, we need more leads. We need more leads. And there was one marketing campaign that came up and they were like, oh, we need less leads. We have too many leads. We can't touch them. And I'm sitting there and the CEO at the time, we were working closely with him and we just kind of like scratch our heads. We're like, I've never heard a sales team say that in my life. But then the
Never.
next month, it turned around after the campaign went successfully from a lead generation perspective. And they had tens of thousands of people that they had never touched. And so, lead generation and finding people that might be interested is definitely a component of the game. I think that initially that becomes a later problem. The most immediate problem is for most people to have something that they can give people for value, whether it's a service, whether it's a product, whatever. And then the next thing is how do you articulate the value around that? So that way, when you have people that are interested, you can explain to them why it's valuable and how it can help them. But then figuring out where people are. And then the nurture thing is the biggest later problem that most people need to solve that they have no idea how to solve. And that's once you have all the people that have purchased and you kind of run through your course, how do you continue to build those relationships deeper and deeper such that eventually you become an inevitable option and solution for them, not maybe a potential solution? And so that's the thing that as we wrap up this episode, I'd like to leave people with is that the nurture is the long game. And that means that you have to show up consistently, and whether it's media, whether it's going to local lunch and learns, BNI,
That
whatever. I
was it.
mean, yeah, just but you got to figure out the nurture thing because it's a long game. And that means that when you start today, it will be less of something that becomes a catastrophic thing for your business. And this is how you effectively never have a lead problem. You never have a sales problem. You never have a pipeline problem of how do you get people from not knowing you to being happy consumers that are sending their friends and family to you. Nurture is the process. So
Yeah.
That's what I had to say.
Yeah,
Steve, any concluding thoughts?
consistency is the thing, right? Just like that is, if it all comes back to one thing, being consistent is the most important thing. A perfect business, which nothing in this world is perfect, would have a percentage of their new attention that comes in and wants to buy right away. Then they would have a percentage of their attention that wants to buy within the next 30 to 90 days. And then they would have a percentage of their attention that wants to buy within the next 3 to 6 months. And then the last bucket is within the next year. And if you continually find new attention in those four buckets that are coming in, you'll get people today. And then you'll also get people today from people you started with 3 months and 6 months and a year ago. And that's the thing where eventually it
Mhm.
becomes easy. You just have to do the work for the next year or two to make it not hard. So, and everybody today, we're so used to, oh, I need something. Let me pick up my phone and order my thing, and it comes tomorrow. I could even get it today if it's the right thing or within 2 days. That's not how this game works. Think about building a relationship with one of your close friends. It didn't happen a week. You knew there was a good connection. You knew you wanted to keep trying, but it took 6 months, a year to be that level. That's what we're doing here. So consistency, keeping the show showing up, talking to them about what they care about and what they want to hear about at the right time on the right platform. All of those things matter, and that's really going to be the key to success on a lead nurture standpoint.
Yeah. Got to make sure you keep learning so you keep having interesting things to talk about because we talk about the same shit all the time. You got less of a pipeline, I think.
All right, gang. Well, that's lead nurture. Principle here, just be consistent. Move people through that pipeline, get them to know you. I appreciate you
Pipe them
guys
down.
listening. Yes. Appreciate you guys listening today. Beyond the Pump, where we break down the business of fitness and nutrition. Please subscribe to the channel, throw us a like, and if you want to hear us talk about something else that would be helpful to you, throw that comment down there for us.
Yep. Make sure you leave us a review. Love you. Bye.